Or good afternoon. This is the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee meeting. We do have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 12:01. Before we proceed with the agenda, I want to make the announcement that on the agenda that was posted, item 3D has been removed from the agenda. That's the discussion and possible action related to limiting pit bull breeds within the city limits. That item has been removed. It is a moot point. It is not something that we can legally act upon. Okay. If you are here to make public comment on that item, you are welcome to do so at the time of public comment. All right. I think we're ready now for public comment. The advisory committee takes public comment on all items on the regular agenda. Public input on the regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the advisory committee at this time. The advisory committee may request an item to be placed on the future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. We are limiting public comment to 3 minutes. If you have public comment, you may step forward and state your name for the record.
It is in action that is now a moot point. My name is Wendy Johnson. It is in reference to what we consider the pit bull issue, but what I'm more here for is education. Pit bull is not a breed. There are 3 common types of animals that have fallen under this classification that I think needs to be understood. It's the American Pit Bull Terrier, the American Staffordshire Terrier, the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Also, to take into those breeds into account, you have to add the American Bulldog into that. By 1990s, we have the American Bully that has been established. These animals are not here. They are not born to do what they do. It is the hands of ignorant people who treat them horribly. If I was placed in a shelter that was dark, fed a diet of blood and raw meat, given animals to play with as a toy to help bait me into fighting, I would probably, and excuse this, have a piss-poor attitude towards humans as well. In 1066, the animal was brought into what is called baiting, and I know I'm shaking. Baiting was where dogs were baited against larger animals. It was for sport. That was later, it was illegal. Then became ratting, where these animals were placed in an actual pit to kill rats. The more rats these animals killed, the better their ranking. When that became illegal, then it became the whole image of, my dad's bigger than your dad. So it became dog versus dog. What happened with that is the Englishmen immigrated to America, the dogs came with them. But they went back to being the family dogs. The United Kennel Club recognized as their very first breed the American Pit Bull Terrier in 1936. It took a while for the American Kennel Club to come into association with that, and as they did, they put it under the heading Staffordshire Terrier. The thing that we as Americans need to remember as well is this was one of the first dogs that we had in the United States as a national dog. The American Pit Bull Terrier was renowned and courageous in the 1900s. During the first half of the 20th century, the American Pit Bull was the closest thing that we had. It was the dog of choice for President Theodore Roosevelt, with understanding he was an avid hunter. Helen Keller also owned an American Pit Bull Terrier. They were the mascot for Buster Brown Shoe Company. They were used on American propaganda posters for each of the first 2 world wars. This was the first dog ever decorated by the armed forces. His name was Sergeant Stubby. It was in World War I. He survived not only once being wounded, but twice in combat. He captured a German spy, which saved an entire platoon from being poisonous gas attacked. After World War II, they retreated back into basically obscurity. This is not what an animal is raised for. It's not what they're born to do. It's what people make them do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm Claire Morris. And I kind of just wanted to ask a few questions that haven't been able to been answered. Like I understand that it is moot point and that the state law prohibits it. I still would like to know which one of our city council members requested it and why. Whether it was because of, a misrepresentation of the breed, because of aggression, or if it was because of our high shelter numbers and the high numbers of, irresponsible pet owners with pit bulls in town. And yeah, that's a question I had.
Unfortunately, we can't discuss this, it's not
not
on the
public.
agenda, but I will say that it is a moot point at this time. They
Yeah,
can't move on this item. So I hope that brings comfort to a lot of people. It does me, that we won't be looking at this for an ordinance, but we can't comment on
Right
anything
now.
else about
Okay.
it.
And also, I guess, comment-wise, there are still cities in Texas that, I understand it was never a ban, that's not what it was brought up, like Denver, Colorado did, where they can come and take your pit bulls out of your yard. I understand that. But there are still cities in Texas that have restrictions. We know that. They can restrict your fences. They can charge you registration fees. They can do all that. And I'm going to stay informed. I'm going to keep informed. Like, I know y'all can't tell us directly what exactly this came from, but I am very interested to know. And I think that would be a misuse of our tax money to try to enforce something else whenever spay and neuter, which I am a huge supporter of, the spay and neuter ordinance. It's just that it hasn't been enforced yet. Like I'm a big believer in social media, obviously. I'm a big believer that that's a good way to talk to people, a good way to get the word out, and it works. It worked for this. You tell people you're gonna come take, the way they took it, it was not taken properly. But spay and neuter, I think education, I think there's a lot more that needs to be done with that before we start passing other ordinances that we can't, because if you look on, that's what I was trying to get at. If you look on Facebook, I see puppies, free, sell, every single day. Every day they're on there. And these people are posting it publicly. Like, it's not like it's hard to figure out who it is. And yeah, that's all I have to say today.
Thank you. And just for a point, I think we're only 20 days into the enforcement of that new ordinance, so hopefully we'll see some results out of that, but we are just 20 days in. It was passed last October, but it went into effect April 1st, just for point of clarity. Anyone else have a public comment? State your name for the record.
My name is Pat Hines, and I'm the president of Concho Valley Paws Board this year. And I'd like to share my own experience with you. Several years ago, I was one of the folks that was uneducated and uninformed about pit bulls. And so hence, I have rental property, and I would not let any of my renters have a pit bull. Over the years, and it's been several years now, I have come to understand and learn about the pit bull. And again, it is the people that raise them and what their intention is for that animal. As a landlord, since I have become educated and quite comfortable with the pit bull, I now, and have for several years, allowed my renters to have pit bulls. I currently have 2 renters that have pit bulls, and they're just big babies, and I love them. What I would encourage people to do, if there's anybody else who has rental property, I would encourage them to, well, this is what I do. I only will allow my renters to have pets if they comply with the ordinances. They must be spayed or neutered. They must have their shots. They must be microchipped. And that is my policy. And I will not rent to somebody who doesn't, because I charge no pet deposit, because I want the care, and I have care and concern for the animals, and I want, and I make it that a point that they must be those things, and they have to provide me the proof. And if they do that, there is no pet deposit, and if they don't, there is no rental. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
David Hawley. Happened into pit bulls, quotation mark, because That is a term, not a breed, with a half pit bull, half Shar-Pei mix. Within months, I was commanding the dog with a snap of my fingers. American Pit Bull Terriers, Staffordshire Terriers, there's a canine aggression that is bred into them. Can it be mediated and dealt with? Yes. Is it a dog for everyone? No. It is a very stubborn dog, very stubborn breed, along with all the breeds that were mentioned. They're bullheaded, they're strong, they're energetic. They do not need to be in the hands of uninformed, misinformed people. Are they loving animals? Are they nanny dogs? Yes. Can it go bad? Yes. When it goes bad, it goes very bad because these dogs excel at whatever you are praising them for. Are there the bad people that do mean things with them? Yes. In the 70s, we had the Doberman Pinschers, the German Shepherds, the Rottweilers. They all excel at doing bad things when they are put in those situations. It's our jobs as advocates to help get the word out and put proper ordinances in place and back them up. Don't just put the words out there and just add more rules to the situation that we can be fined for and we have to deal with and sort through. Simple, concise, to the point. Let's go after the breeders that are irresponsible. Let's go over to the owners that are irresponsible. Those are the problems, not the dogs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not very big, but I've had a Pit Bull Shar-Pei for 10 years by myself, and that was the most loving, caring animal I have ever been around in my life. It protected me to the max. After I had to have him put down, my son, I took over his female pit, and she sleeps with me. She can't get close enough to me. That dog loves to go in the car with me. She loves people. There isn't a mean bone in her body. But my son's right. You can't just let them go. You have to keep them on a lead. And I like to think of myself as a good companion to her, and she is to me. And we don't beat our dogs, and we take very good care of them, and we don't let them run. And he's right, it's the handlers that do this, it's not the breed.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment?
My name's Andy Allen, and just a couple of things I'd like to mention. First off, when I became aware of the situation on social media, and I want to give props to everybody here that spread the word, because a lot got done just in a matter of hours. When I saw it, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, the item was already being removed from the agenda. I'd also just like to say, and I'm not publicly endorsing any councilman here, but it was Councilman Rodney Fleming who saw our post and brought it up at the meeting, because he has German Shepherds, and he was concerned, if you start with pit bulls, then what's next? German Shepherds. And I watched the meeting online. I saw him mention it, and then it wasn't 20, 30 minutes later, he replied on one of my posts that they got the word from the attorney that this was not a legal action. So I'd just like to thank Rodney Fleming for kind of helping us out on that. I'm pretty sure he would be the councilman that brought this up in the first place. And as a pit bull owner myself, I have a Staffordshire Terrier who he actually came into my life by accident when somebody threw him out of a truck as a puppy. Took him, got him his shots. I picked him up, my arm was covered in fleas. So there's worse owners out there than I think there are dogs. In this case, he wasn't an owner at all. But I took the dog home, and I don't live in fear of my pit bull. I live in fear for my pit bull. I I got him chipped right away before it was even a law, because I was terrified that somebody would come and steal them, because I see a lot of that happen. Magnificent animals that get stolen right out of their backyards because they're going to be put into rings to fight or something like that, or bred or something like that. I keep him on a leash at all times because he's full of energy. He loves to run. He's got that tongue wagging out, and yeah, he's got a mouthful of teeth. People see that and they get a little freaked out, and I get freaked out because I don't want somebody pulling a gun out and putting him down because they think he's in attack mode. He's not. He's just an energetic animal. And I think what a lot of people that they need to understand is if they're going to adopt one of these animals, they are full of energy. When I got my dog, he ate probably 5 of my remotes. I don't have one original remote to my TV. And the animal can digest AA batteries, but he can't digest a pack of Smarties. So, and I'm not lying. And those of you that know these dogs can chew and they have a lot of energy. And when they're puppies growing up, they can be fairly destructive. But if you tolerate it and you get through it, he's 3 years old now and he's lazy. All he wants to do is be on the couch and eat, unless we go for a walk. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think education on this breed is what is really required. And I think a lot of people read a lot of stuff in social media that isn't necessarily true. And so I think you could kind of dispel some of the rumors and everything. And if you really look inside these shelters and find out why a lot of these animals are there, I think a good part of the reason is their owners simply surrendered them because they couldn't handle them. They're not a dog for everybody. It's like everything else. Dachshunds aren't for me. I've been bitten by dachshunds more times than I care to count. So I know that's not a breed that I want to deal with. So I think that maybe perhaps the animal shelter, if somebody does go in to adopt a dog, maybe if you don't already, brief them on what they can expect with a particular breed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, I think at this time we'll close public comment and move on to the rest of the agenda. I do want to commend all of you for coming to this meeting. I personally appreciate having actual people here when we have these meetings. I think community involvement is so very important, and these agendas are posted for the public. And since we've all heard a lot about education today, I think it's a good idea for everybody to keep an idea of what's on the agenda, not just this committee, but all the committees in our community, because this is our community. So thank you very much for coming, and at that point we'll move on the agenda. And I think now we need to, item 2 is our consent agenda, and that is approving the February 18th meeting minutes. Has everyone on the committee had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to accept these minutes as presented?
Make a motion to accept them.
Okay, Sarah has made a motion to accept it. I need a second.
A second.
Okay, a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. The minutes are approved, and we're moving on now to our regular agenda. Discussion and possible action related to the monthly shelter numbers for February and March of 2016. We did not meet due to spring break last month, so we have 2 months to cover.
That's correct. Thank you. We do have February, March numbers for you. The February numbers, we had 361 new entries. We had 132 adopted. We had 37 owner returned, and 1 died. In our possession, we had 242 euthanized, which gave us a 46% E-rate. In March, we had an increase. We had a 433 input. We had 140 adopted, and that was part of that special event that Jennifer McCon sponsored. We had 36 owner returned, 3 died, 137 were euthanized, and 24 were, that gives a 24% E-rate, which is, I think, it's a good survival rate for our shelter.
Bob, let me interrupt just a second just to make sure we are all clear. Owner return are the ones that were redeemed by an owner from the shelter, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. These are the euthanasia categories. In February, we had 2 that were aggressive, 24 in March. We had 7 bite quarantines in February and 12 in March. We had 1 failure to thrive in February, 0 in March, 94 ferals in February, 34 in March, 17 were injured, 27 in March, 66 in February that were sick. I think we had 21 that were sick in March. We had 0 owner requests in February. We had 9 in March. We had 56 animals, wildlife that were put down, and we had 10 in March. And for time and space, that means we have no room for any more. We had 9 in February. We had 0 in March, and that's a good number for us. And I believe those are the shelter numbers. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions?
No, you said we had a 24% E-rate for March,
That is correct.
and I believe that's an all-time low, is that right?
That is the all-time low. We had 25 2 months ago. 24 is the lowest we've ever had. So it's if you look at our graph on adoptions, and by the way, it's on. I believe it's on our website. If not, I'll put it on there. It's got the graph of euthanasia versus adoptions are going completely opposite. We've gone from a pretty high, almost 80% at one point of euthanasia down to these numbers. I think we average about 40%, which is pretty good across the state, actually pretty good across the nation, to be honest with you. For a shelter, a municipal shelter, of course. There are non-kill shelters who are pretty competitive, obviously. And then our adoptions are going straight up. Events like we had recently, Jennifer and people like her are helping us get, and Paul's and Critter Shack and all the other nonprofits are helping us get the adoptions up. So you see those two numbers going completely opposite. So very happy about that. I salute my staff for working hard trying to get those numbers down. So we're pretty pleased.
Yes, I want to take a second to commend you and the staff at the shelter. Those are amazing. I like seeing 0 on that.
It takes a community.
Space.
It doesn't. We say staff and other people, but really it's the community. The community has to respond. They have to go out there and they have to adopt. The community has to spay neuter. The community needs to ensure that the animals are kept in their possession. They let them go out and those kind of things. So, like I said, it takes a village. And in this case, it takes an Angelo. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. We are on item 3B. That is discussion and possible action related to the Animal Services Advisory Council bylaws. Bob, did you have some to present to us? Some
Yes,
suggestions?
as you know, we have, I think you have a copy of the old bylaws, and then a starting point that I provided the committee to kind of go from that. Talking with Jenny, I believe that I think a workshop to go over these bylaws would be better. I'm recommending that we do that, have a special meeting, just casual, we'll open up to the public, but to kind of work through the bylaws at a more, without being hurried, because sometimes you miss some things when you try to hurry up. So that's my recommendation, that we table this, have a special meeting just for the bylaws, so we can take our time, come up with something that's solid. I think Jenny mentioned a vision statement, which you don't have, we never have. Those kind of things, and a strategic plan that kind of helps us go towards where we want to go. Basically, so that the citizens know what's expected of the committee, what the staff, what's expected from the staff, those kind of things. I think that's important instead of just putting numbers and verbiage on a piece of paper. We actually go through this come up with something that's solid and something that will last. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
When do you want to have this meeting?
It'll be
Can
up
we
to
set it up
the. It'll be up to. It could be a special meeting as long as we publicize it. It could be. We could work through that at your schedule, whenever you're available.
I want to keep tabling it. Let's
I
set the
understand.
meeting up.
Well, how about before the end of the? How about early next month? First week of May. Is that okay with committee?
That sounds good. And I think that this is a step in the right direction, because I understand you don't want to keep tabling it, but I want us to take the time to have something that we can work from that's actually
Oh, I
going
agree.
to guide us in the
Yeah.
direction that we need to go as this board. I'd like to see this board become more active and more connected with the community and with the council. So I think if we just take maybe just an hour-long workshop is all we're going to need, and then we'll have something concrete to come back and vote on and move forward with next month.
I'll move to schedule a meeting, working session. And you have, like you said, you have a copy of the draft, just a starting point, and we can work off of that.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, if the committee is in agreement, then I'm going to move forward with a motion that we table this item pending a workshop that will be scheduled by Mr. Salas's office for early May. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on. Then we have the discussion and possible action related to update on the shelter fee schedule.
Good afternoon. James Flotis, Assistant Director of Neighborhood and Family Services. Recently, we've been working with our budget office as a cumulative, I think, of the city as a whole. I was fortunate enough to get on that fee review schedule sooner than most departments, and as I've mentioned to most of my senior board members, we've had some fees that are pretty antiquated, so we've presented these fees both to you guys and to council, and last Tuesday they voted to move forward with the first read, which is direction for us to prepare ourselves for a second read approval, and if that is the case, we will have new fees at the shelter. I don't think I need to go over all of them unless you guys want me to break them each down as they're presented.
I do want to say that they did approve the proposed fee versus the estimated cost of service. While other departments they were directed to use that number, they went with proposed fees for us. So that's the column that you'll be looking at that council approved.
Right.
For the first hearing, there'll be next hearing again, and then at that point it'll be enacted.
Who's the heartworm test for? The public or what y'all charge?
It's for anybody that requests a heartworm test. We don't perform that unless you request it, the adopter, the puller, the rescuer,
Oh, it is for one
It's a fee
that's
for
been
someone.
rescued.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Correct.
It's not open to the public.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And a perfect example of what Mr. Salas just stated about we proposed fees that in most of these cases, I think every single one of them do not cover the cost of service, but I think there was more of a feeling about us being more in the health and service industry and the need to not necessarily recoup exact cost. I think that's up to me to manage that department and lose in this category and make some in the other, and at the end of the day, hopefully we balance out. But a perfect example of that, the very first one, the heartworm test, it's a $7 fee currently. The actual test is anywhere from $6.90 to $6.98, depending on when we buy it, freight, everything else. The administering of is pretty quick, so we took our lowest paid employee that performs that particular figure, and the estimated cost of service with the test included, the time involved, was the $16 cost. We were proposing $10. And since we were approved based off of our proposed fees versus our cost of doing business fees, that's what you're looking at today. So you're looking at a $3 increase. A new one that we have today, which is an animal pickup at owner's request, that was $0. We did a lot of that. That cost was about $39 when you compute the vehicle the officer's driving, their salary, their FICA, the wear and tear on the truck. So there's a lot of them that are still within, I think, reason, but none of these are at the estimated service of cost or cost of service. Euthanization is based off of pounds, always has been, and the bigger the dog, the more sodium pentobarbital you would need to put that animal down, and hence the expense. So we broke that down into pounds. It was always $7 across the board. We did have a 187-pound dog not too long ago that we had to euthanize. And that's gets pretty expensive. So again, we proposed doing a small incremental increase. 0 to 20 is $10, 21 to 50 is $15, 51 to 100 is $20, 101 plus pounds is $25. One of the biggest increases that we had, but that we battle on a daily basis, is the rabies submission head test. Currently, that fee is $28, and never did that fee cover basic courier costs. The test itself is provided by the state. It's free. However, we use a local courier to transport the decapitated head to the lab facility, And in almost every case scenario, again, it's based off pounds because it's a courier providing that service. We did not recoup our bare minimum of $28 fee. So it's a $40 fee, and we estimate cost to be about $81. So again, you'll see that these fees I think are pretty much in line.
Who's that fee charged to?
You.
The owner?
Yes.
Okay.
Or the victim, if they want to pay for, let's just hypothetically say you get bit by a loose stray dog. We never find, or we find the dog but no owner. We have no confirmation of it being rabid, and you were bit by that. You can request a more expedient service than waiting for 10 days of quarantine. You can request it. It's a 24-hour process. I mean, it's instantly done, packaged, and sent off, and by tomorrow this time they'll let me know if you need to get an inoculation for rabies. So that's a fee that can fall both on the dog owner or the victim of the bite. Again, some of these that are on here today are new. We did not have an animal surrender fee prior to discussing it with our ASAC committee, and they voted to approve the fact that we're just going to charge a flat $10 fee for a true owner redemption. We don't want to, a surrender, I'm sorry, not a redemption. We don't want to discourage the people that are bringing in an animal that they found in the HEB parking lot or they found on the side of the road. That's not what this fee is designed for. It's for after vetting the citizen. I think we can make an educated decision based off the context of the conversation and decipher whether or not this is an owned animal. That is about a $33 difference of what cost is for somebody to come in and surrender an animal. Trap deposit, we don't have traps. We used to, and when you loan those out, you either don't get them back or they're dismantled. Today, if you're wanting to trap, which seems to be a big thing in this community, I will loan you a trap for a $20 deposit, and you can pick that up and utilize it at your convenience. And if I don't get my $20 back, you keep the trap and I keep your 20. So that's what we're doing on that. Spay-neuter program, which was our biggest, our main focus for this fee increase. There's not a slide to show you the scales here, but basically we created a spay-neuter program for the citizenry that is within federal poverty guidelines. And I'll just give you a quick example. 50% of poverty is about $5,900. A one-person individual, that's a family of one that's making $5,900. When that person falls in that category, he will be charged, or they will be charged, a flat $10 for spay-neutering. All the way to, on that same federal poverty guideline, if you make $43,000 some odd dollars, don't quote me on the hundreds, but I know it's 43. You will be charged $65. That's 400% of poverty, and we stayed within the federal poverty guidelines. We want that customer that typically is not going to your local veterinarian's office anyway. That's the market that we're trying to capture and to hopefully help with the overpopulation of animals. So the guideline goes from 10 to 65. It's based off of 5,900 to 43,000, family of one. Of course, it goes into family of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's a matrix that we will utilize based off of your proof of income and see whether or not you qualify for this program. So if you don't, we will discourage that opportunity and have you go to your private veterinarian. But if you fall within that guideline from 50% to 400%, the max you should pay is $65. The minimum you're going to pay is $10 for that surgery. And I think that's it on fees.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments? So this goes before council for the second reading when? Next Tuesday.
It'll be, I think, May the 3rd.
Okay, so on the May 3rd meeting, council will approve this on second reading, and then you will be in position to.
It gets enacted at that point.
Okay.
Public comment?
Is there any public comment on the presentation of fees? All right, moving along then on the agenda, I think we, with discussion of future agenda items, does anyone on the committee have anything that they want to see on the next agenda?
Yes, I do. I would like to find out how we go about finding out where the feral cat colonies are and who is responsible for them. There's been several discussions, and I realize that Miss Stanley is the one that everybody should go to, but she has told us that it was in an ordinance, but it's not in the ordinance, and she would not tell us where they were. And I think especially the animal shelters should be able to know where these colonies are so that they can address them, you know, make sure that, you know, the cats are healthy still and everything. So I don't know what we need to do, but I want to find out what we need to do to find out where they are, and if we can't find out where they are, why.
Okay. So on the next agenda, then, could we discuss the procedures for how the feral cat colonies are registered with the shelter, if they are, and review those ordinances as they currently stand?
Yes, what I could do for you guys is send you the actual ordinance in electronic file so that you can disseminate the information between now and then, and prior to us requesting or us posting the next agenda, we can gather your questions and maybe get to specifics on that. It's not a really long ordinance. It's pretty cut and dry, but I think we can review it. I'll be more than happy to send it to each one of y'all via email.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else for the next agenda? Okay. Well, then if we have no further business on the agenda, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Go ahead.
We've already passed the public comment period. There's no general comments at this point.
Oh,
So we'll take a motion to adjourn. I think,
it
Faye,
made, I'll
you did.
second it.
A second. Okay, all those in favor to adjourn? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.